Good evening.
Good evening.
It's great to be here with all of you. I bring greetings from the Jobs and Justice National Network, and I want to take a moment to recognize many of you and others from the Democratic Socialists of America who have provided incredible leadership in building jobs and justice around the country. So thank you to many of you. As some of you know, and some of you may not know, Jobs and Justice, as Maria said, Jobs and Justice for the last 24 years has been building a progressive labor movement that works in coalition with community, faith, and student allies to build a global movement for economic and social justice. We're in 47 communities across the country in 26 states. And really, we're built on a very simple premise of solidarity, right? Many of you have signed the I'll Be There pledge card for Jobs and Justice. It's really, really quite simple. 24 years ago, leaders came together and said, you know what we need now more than ever, and I think that's especially true today, is a commitment from people to be there at least 5 times for other people's struggle as well as our own, and that's how we're going to make change. That's how we're going to win. And I have to say, we've well over 100,000 people who've signed these cards and are actively building solidarity, taking direct action, and standing up for workers and communities across the country. It's such an incredible moment that we're in, and I think it's hard to follow Joss and Eliseo, but I think they both did a terrific job, as did Maria in the opening, of laying out the context that we're in right now, right? So I'm going to try to focus a little bit on what are we going to do about it, and what are we at Jobs and Justice trying to do about it, in hopes that it inspires and helps us all think collectively about how we maximize the moment we're in. But it is worth saying that it is an incredible moment with all the suffering that is going on out there, everything Eliseo just laid out, of all the attacks on workers' rights, on the attacks on immigrant communities, the attacks on women, the attacks on our voting rights, there's just attack after attack after attack. But what's been so inspirational in this moment is the fight back. The commitment of individuals, communities, unions, and others to say no more. We are not going to tolerate this anymore. From Wisconsin, as Jobs and Justice, it was so exciting to see what was happening in Wisconsin, to see people talk about workers' rights. Finally, we can build a movement around workers' rights in this country, right? So just to see Wisconsin, and it wasn't just Wisconsin, it was Ohio, it was Indiana, it was Florida, New Hampshire, Maine, Pennsylvania. people were mobilizing and taking action, right? So just so inspirational to see that kind of action. And from there, I go to this summer at our national conference that some of you were at, and the night of our banquet, Larry Cohen, president of the Communication Workers of America, said, I'm speaking to you now, and I have to go back into a bargaining session with Verizon workers because 45,000 workers are going to go out on strike tonight. And that was amazing, right? The notion, just as Eliseo talked about Verizon, the company, it's wealthy, it's profitable, yet they really wanted to roll back progress made over the years, serious progress made for workers, right? With benefits, with wages, the whole bit, retirement security, everything. And those 45,000 workers in the midst of high unemployment in this country took a risk and said, we're going to go out on strike, and we're going to say no more, no more. This is not okay, because they understood, as did we, as core allies to them in that fight, and as did many of you in the labor movement communities that mobilized with a drop of a dime, right, was that at the end of the day, this was the front line, and we had to make sure that we didn't lose at Verizon, and that we don't lose at Verizon. That struggle is still happening. Bargaining is still happening. But we can't allow for any losses, right? So beyond Wisconsin and the 45,000 workers across the watching community organizations, housing justice groups take major risks, individuals who are really victims of the housing crisis in this country, saying, you know what, I'm going to resist eviction. I'm going to resist eviction. It's not okay. It's not fair, and I'm going to stand for that. Today in Occupy, right? What an incredible moment. Who would have thought that Occupy was, I mean, if you asked me 6 months ago, 3 months ago, I would have been like, what? Like, people are going to talk about 99%? That people are going to actually talk about inequality in this country? It's just an incredible moment. So what does this all mean for us in the work that we all do and the commitment that we all have as progressives in this country? For Jobs of Justice, we had to really step back and say the attacks are enormous, this moment is enormous, but we were very clear on our principles, right? That at the end of the day, we need to unite people now more than ever. We have to bring together in local communities and around the world, and frankly around the world, but certainly in communities across the country. We have to bring together the unemployed. We have to bring together private sector workers with public sector workers, with communities of color, with immigrant communities. And that if we don't, in fact, find ways to unite people, we risk everyone being under attack, right? When we're united, we can, in fact, win. And that this is a time for us to actually be audacious. We need to be audacious in the demands that we're making. We need to be making transformative demands, right? Aspirational demands that inspire millions of people to take action with us right now. And when I say transformative demands, I really mean we're just in this incredible moment, especially given Occupy, to actually put out our vision for what an alternative economy looks like in the United States. As the speakers before me have said, we have to put people in motion now, right? We've got to be in motion together. I mean, at Jobs of Justice, we really believe that once people take action together, people are transformed. People begin to understand the power that they have to make change. And so now more than ever, we need to be organizing and putting people in motion. So very concretely for Jobs of Justice, what does that mean? We've approached this moment, and it took some time over the last few years to really develop a framework for our work. We believe we need to be fighting for full and fair employment right now. And for us, that means we need to be fighting for jobs. We need to be fighting for good jobs, to be clear. We need to protect our social safety net. We need to protect the public sector. And 3, we need to make Wall Street pay. We need to make those who created the crisis. Yeah. So we've been doing incredible work with lots of different organizations and unions out there to really fight for things like the financial speculation tax, for example, when we talk about making Wall Street pay. I was just in a day-long meeting. I may look a little tired because I'm a little tired because I was in a day-long meeting with environmental organizations, labor unions, housing rights organizations, and others coming together to say, what do? We need to build a powerful corporate accountability movement in this country. And it has to be across sectors, and we need to make Wall Street pay. That's the center of what we need to do right now. So that's one. But let's talk about the safety net for a quick second. This super committee, right, is meeting as we speak. And we know only bad is going to come out of that super committee, right? There will be severe cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security that will have huge implications on our communities. And we have to be ready to respond to that and fight against those cuts. We have to protect our social safety net. And certainly, we have to protect the public sector. I mean, many of us mobilized in solidarity with Wisconsin last year. Well, guess what? We are gearing up for another round of battles in the states. has not disappeared, it has not gone away. But what was really inspiring about last year, and what's inspiring about this year, all the Jobs and Justice coalitions in Ohio and Indiana and Missouri and Florida and Pennsylvania and Maine, they're connecting their struggles, connecting the struggles of public sector workers with immigrant communities. Because we also know there's all these attacks happening on the state levels on immigrant communities, as LSAO spoke of, right? Crazy attacks that we have to defend against. We've come together with environmentalists. You know, last year, if you remember, they were trying to defund the EPA, like get rid of the EPA, period. And then, of course, voting rights. I mean, the level of voter suppression in this country is outrageous. The number of people who have the right to vote. I have to agree with one of the speakers before me who said, at the end of the day, this is a fight about our democracy. Right? This is a fight about our democracy. We know that the fight in Wisconsin last year wasn't just about a fight to attack bargaining rights, it was a frontal assault on the progressive infrastructure of this country. And we need now more than ever to be smart about how we're gonna turn the tide on that, right? So let's talk about jobs, because that's what you all came to talk about. For us at Jobs and Justice, we realized there's a lot of ways to approach this question of how we create jobs. So we have an overarching demand of job creation, right? But we decided a couple of years ago, about a year and a half now, that we wanted to dig into a couple of sectors where we felt we could really impact and influence not only job creation, but the quality of jobs. And I can't stress this enough. We cannot accept that we just create more jobs, but they be horrible jobs that pay, we cannot accept a Walmart economy, friends, right? And so obviously our name is a slogan, but it's also what we believe, that we need to be fighting for jobs with justice. Jobs with real bargaining rights, jobs that pay wages that allow people to support themselves and their families, wages with jobs with real benefits, jobs with retirement security, the whole bit. So we decided we wanted to dig into two sectors in particular of the economy. One was retail, and one is direct care. So I'm going to take a moment to talk about both of those, because I think they're actually exciting opportunities to unite around. So the first is retail. As we began to realize, what does it mean in this economy since globalization, since agreements like NAFTA, as manufacturing has decreased in this country in terms of that sector, the retail economy is growing. The jobs that are being created in lots of communities are in fact retail jobs. And we know Walmart in particular is the largest employer, private sector employer in the country, right? And close to the largest around the world, right? It's the largest. In the US, Walmart employs 1.4 million workers. 1 out of 10 retail workers works at Walmart, to give you a sense of that. And we know that Walmart is really trying hard to break into urban communities like DC, right? And some of you who are from DC here have been a part of the Respect DC Coalition and the work to really say, if you're going to come into our communities, we want to be clear about the jobs, we want to be clear about what the community needs are, and we want to be clear about how you pay taxes. Because Walmart is one of, when we were talking earlier about the deadbeats, Walmart is one of the largest deadbeats in the country. Walmart has one of the largest number of workers and dependents on Medicaid, for example. There is study after study that shows, I think in the state of Massachusetts, $15.5 million, right, of state, of taxpayer dollars is going to subsidize Walmart. I'm sorry. How do you feel about your tax dollars subsidizing Walmart? But that's really what's happening, right? So we've launched with the United Food and Commercial Workers the Making Change at Walmart campaign. And at Jobs of Justice, we really believe that if we can change Walmart, we can in fact change the economy, right? If we can get Walmart, who sets the standard in the retail industry, to actually treat their workers with respect, pay their workers enough so that they can in fact afford homes, pay for schools for their kids, and in fact have retirement security, then we can build healthy economy again, right? So the campaign is about really changing the business practices of Walmart. That's what we're trying to do. We're changing the practice, the business model of Walmart. The campaign is really exciting, and there's lots of folks here from the DC, the Respect DC Coalition, and incredible work that's been going on. Isaiah, and Deepak's here, and Rosa, and there's a lot of other folks here, some of whom are wearing this Respect DC Coalition. But there's incredible work happening here in DC, in places like Chicago, Boston, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles. And I think the other thing to keep in mind about Walmart is it's not just a retailer. It is the largest logistics company in the world, right? So, really, to digest that, this campaign is super exciting because the union is building relationships, not only with the workers' rights movement, with the food justice movement, with environmentalists, with others, to sort of say we really need to come together and really examine how we change the practices of this company. And frankly, how we look at the company as a major retailer, but also as a major logistics employer around the world. So it's a global campaign. It's really exciting, and I hope that some of you will join us in the efforts to really change Walmart so we can change the economy. The second area that we decided we really needed to dig into was direct care. So every 8 seconds, somebody turns 65 in this country. We are in the first year of the age wave. Baby boomer population is aging, and people are living longer. There is a great need for long-term care in this country. And guess what? Care work is one of the most undervalued work in this society, right? National Domestic Workers Alliance, and we have built a really broad-based coalition to take a look at the demographic shifts. So I just talked about the demographic shifts in terms of the age wave, but at the same time, we also know that we're moving towards a majority people of color population in the United States. So let me just ask you something. As a result of all of this, we see incredible polarity that's formed between an aging white electorate and young communities of color with very little economic opportunity. So let me ask you, what city do you believe has the greatest number of an aging white electorate and the greatest number of young people of color with very little economic opportunity? Name out the city. LA, someone said? Atlanta? What else?
DC.
Sorry?
DC.
DC?
Albuquerque.
Okay, so let me tell you, the country with the greatest number of those two populations, and therefore incredible polarity, is Phoenix, Arizona. And look at what's coming out of Phoenix, Arizona. It is, in fact, a forecast for us and a wake-up call for us as progressives in this country, that if we don't actually figure out how to build intergenerational relationships and begin to really come to grips with the demographic shifts in this country, we are in big trouble. So that being the basis of our campaign called Caring Across Generations, we decided we in fact need to transform the long-term care industry in this country. We in fact need to build an intergenerational campaign, and we need to unite home care workers, domestic workers, seniors, people with disabilities, and youth, and many more who are impacted by this issue of care. And we put out a really bold agenda. We're saying we need, basically, to pass legislation that will help transform the long-term care industry. And we sort of call it the 5 fingers of the caring hand, because we actually believe all 5 fingers need to be moved together in order for it to be effective, to create true transformation of the long-term care industry. So one is we need to create 2 million jobs because there's an enormous care gap. The amount of need there is, with the amount of care workers, there's just an enormous gap. So we need to create new jobs. So when we talk about jobs, how do we get really concrete? Well, we need at least 2 million jobs in the care industry over the next few years, right? The second is we need to create real labor standards in direct care. And we need to create a path to unionization. 3, we need to create training programs and career ladders because actually there really, believe it or not, aren't standards set around training. 4, we need to create a path to citizenship for the millions of workers who are providing direct care who do not have health. And then 5, we need to make sure that we're supporting families and individuals so that they can actually afford the care that they need, right? So those are the 5 fingers. Let me tell you, this isn't just a policy campaign for us when we talk about jobs, right? It's actually fundamentally a values-based campaign. It's about igniting people's imagination of what kind of a society we want. One that actually values care, values and makes sure that we are allowing our aging population in this country to age with dignity, right? That these issues of long-term care for too long people are dealing with on an individual basis. That somehow it's your fault that you can't figure out how to afford the care that you need. Or it's your fault if you're the worker who's providing care and you're not getting enough money and can't pay the bills and don't have the benefits. This is a societal problem, friends. Like, we actually need to figure out how we bring this very individual issue out to the public because more and more people are struggling with this question of care. And how can we as a movement actually create momentum, create vision, and help people see that in fact we can care across generations and completely transform the way we think about care in this society. So I offer those as a couple of ideas of jobs, so retail, care. But a third arena for us at Jobs of Justice is also looking, going back to job quality in particular, at the growing informal sector in our economy as well, and the growing informal workforce in our economy as well. And many of you all know the reasons why we have an informal sector that's growing. But it's very clear to us that if we don't raise the standards of jobs for people who are working in the lowest wage work in this country, then we in fact all hurt. And that in fact we need to lift everybody now more than ever. So last year, a year and a half ago, we began to bring together 9 sectors of what we refer to as excluded workers. These are workers who either by law, well, really by law, are excluded from the National Labor Relations Act, right? So these are farm workers. These are domestic workers. But this also includes workers who are misclassified, but workers who literally are tipped employees who, frankly, are denied lots of labor protections. Right? These are guest workers who are brought into this country but find themselves often in very abusive situations. What kind of protections do they have? What kind of standards do they have? These are formerly incarcerated workers. More and more workers, so as criminalization of workers increases, so does then the bias of hiring people with criminal records. And so there's a huge movement of criminal justice organizations and others saying that formerly incarcerated people need access to jobs and the kinds of jobs. Welfare workfare workers. So we began to bring all these workers together to say, okay, how do we imagine a new framework for bargaining rights in the 21st century that brings together formal sector workers and informal sector workers and actually allows us to reimagine what workers' rights in this country really is about. Allows us to actually push the envelope and raise the standards for all workers. And a key component of work that's coming out of that coming together is what we are calling the Power Act. Senator Menendez introduced this recently with Judy Chu and others. But the Power Act, which is essentially whistleblower protection for immigrant workers, so that when they find themselves in abusive situations or they want to fight and organize to actually change their workplace, and if they're able to do that without retaliation. So the Power Act is another stream of work that we're moving in order to really create change and make sure that we're creating good jobs and we're addressing job quality issues and we're also protecting the rights of workers to organize in this country. So I just want to bring this all back together to say we're in a new moment as a movement, I think as a progressive movement, that we have to come to terms with. It's a new moment for us. We need to put out a real vision for what our economy is, what we want our economy to be. But now more than ever, I want to go back to this notion that we need to be audacious in our demands. We cannot fight in silos anymore. We very easily, as Jobs and Justice, could have come to the issue of long-term care and said, well, we will just work with the unions and domestic workers and fight for workers' rights in the direct care industry. But instead we said, no, we need to actually transform the industry. We need to bring seniors into the conversation, people with disabilities, and we need to really capture the imagination of millions to be a part of creating the society that we want. So I want to leave us by saying we really need transformative demands now that more than ever. And I think that Democratic Socialists of America, you all have a vision. You know what we need, and we need your leadership, your thinking, your inspiration to help us, in fact, develop those kinds of transformative demands. We need demands that are going to expand the realm of possibility. That's what we need right now. You see, as movements, as we get weaker or smaller, we tend to narrow our demands because we want to be winnable, right? But now more than ever, we need to expand the realm of possibility. So how do we be audacious in our demands? The Occupy movement is amazing for lots of reasons, lots of lessons we're learning from the Occupy movement. But what's amazing is their ability to center the issues of inequality back into the public debate and narrative, right? And I think it's on us as a progressive movement. It's on us as GSA. It's on us as Jobs and Justice. It's on us as the unions. It's on us, all of us, to think about this frame of 99% and the 1%. I was with Walmart Associates. I neglected to say that Walmart Associates are organizing, and it's amazing. They've created their own organization called Our Walmart, Organization United for Respect at Walmart. Thousands and thousands of Walmart Associates are organizing into a worker association. And I was with them. No, it's ridiculous. They're taking huge risks to fight for better wages and benefits, and much more. But I was with them in Bentonville. We went to Walmart headquarters, which, by the way, if you haven't been to Bentonville, it's jaw-dropping to see Walmart headquarters. But we walked, we marched, we went, we wanted to meet and lay out, the workers wanted to lay out their principles. And of what, really what their demands are as associates. And what was amazing is, of course, there's police presence. They wouldn't let us through. They only wanted to have, one worker at a time speak or come in, and it was just, so we did our thing. And then at one point, very organically, a number of the workers began to chant, "We are the 99%. We are the 99%. We are, in fact, the 99%. You see, we need more of that. We need more of helping people take a stand, talk about the 99% versus the 1%, and we need to name the 1%. We need to name the Waltons, for example, which is like the 0.00001%, right? There are a lot of bad actors here. who corporate America is right now and what their agenda is in relationship to people. We need to be coming together, we need to build new alliances, we need to imagine new actions, tactics, energy to really bring folks together and in fact keep the energy of the Occupy movement and the imaginations of the public centered around inequality and what we're going to do about it. I'm excited for what's to come. I think there's so much that's going to happen. 2012 is such an important year with the elections, but it's also an important opportunity for us to center our values, the issues we care deeply about, in the center of the public debate, the electoral debates. And I look forward as Jobs of Justice to stand with TSA, to stand with all of you, to continue to build the movement that we need to ensure that in fact we have a just society, that we have the economy that we need, and that in fact people are prioritized over profits. Thank you.